Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is a special episode, or special video from the John1911 Armory. We have a VIP visitor over at the facility. We have Doc, and he looks very uncomfortable because he is shocked at the level of video production that we were trying to pull off. That probably doesn't look professional. But what's going on here today is we've been documenting some issues Doc has had with his SCAR-20 and some suppressor issues and accuracy issues, and I wanted him to, he's got it solved, and I wanted him to maybe talk about it directly, because I already can see the look on his face that I may not have even framed it correctly. So go ahead and let's tell people, what kind of gun is this, Doc?
Well, it's a SCAR-20 in .308. It's got a Night Force 5.5 to 22 scope, and it's just mounted with tactical rings on my rifle. And sometime after I purchased this firearm, I opted to go ahead and obtain a suppressor. And on the advice of some people who are more knowledgeable than I bought the name escapes me.
Thunderbeast,
thank you. Thunderbeast suppressor. And I also had to buy a muzzle device because it was also recommended that I use...
Bring that down into this camera view a little bit. They can't see that. There you go.
The muzzle device was suggested I put a muzzle brake on the firearm because, according to my people who are more knowledgeable, it's a little easier on a firearm than just on the suppressor than just screwing it on directly to the barrel. So I went ahead and bought the muzzle device and the suppressor that was threaded to mount to that. Shortly after, so I mounted the muzzle device, rock setted it on, got it timed properly, and was shooting it for a while, and it was really fantastic. This rifle, it's always shot very nicely in terms of accuracy, improved dramatically. I think you published some groups that I've shot with this rifle that I've been very pleased with for a semi-automatic that is not necessarily a target rifle precision.
I would add, it does have a slow twist rate barrel, so you tend to favor the lighter bullets, though?
Oh, yes, that's true. And the reason why, it does have a 1 in 12 twist. And because it is, if you will, a slower twist, you cannot shoot the longer bullets because it has problems stabilizing. So I do reload my own ammunition, and I've settled on the 155 grain Sierra bullet to shoot regularly, and I'm very pleased with the performance. But back to the suppressor issue, I was using it very nicely, but then I had problems with it coming loose. And I worked with it, tightened it down, I even put it on with a strap wrench. And after 7 or 8 rounds, or 10 rounds or so, it would come loose, and all of a sudden the accuracy would go, it would be terrible. It was just shooting, I would use the term, it would shoot patterns as opposed to groups. And so I called Thunderbeast, and they said, well, please send the suppressor. We'll see what's going on. Because I should say, I mounted it on a 300 Winchester that I'd gotten back and was also having some issues with it loosening. So I sent it to Thunderbeast. They spent some time working on it, sent it back. In reality, they said, we tried. We couldn't duplicate your problem. He said, we tried it on a 300 Winchester. They did not have a SCAR, but they postulated, and I think it's probably reasonable, because of the not only because of the firearm. I mean, let me say this again. Because of the piston out here, there's a lot of vibrations that are set up for each time that it's fired, and it was probably shooting the suppressor loose. And then, of course, when the suppressor got loose, it would shoot very, as I said, it would shoot patterns. So, and then I looked at.
I'll take the rifle because I know the rifle's heavy. I'll get it back to you.
In the suppressor, what we found out, there was a little end cap strikes when we looked at it closely. So I called Thunderbeast back, and they put me onto kbacustom.com, who made, two things. They made, actually, if I can have the rifle, they made a ring right here that goes on there, and I'll explain, and that solved the problem, and I'll explain that. And they also have a tube, it's an alignment tube that you, when you screw the suppressor on, this is inserted into it, and you can actually see if you're having any potential strike on the end cap. And this tool works very nicely. But regarding regarding this ring that is made, what happens is, because I was having a lot more and more issues with this. Yeah, I had taken this off to send it to Thunder Beast out in Wyoming, and then I had to reinstall it. And it turns out that when you put these things on and off, there's only a very small little ridge on here or lip. And what happens, you can deform it ever so slightly as you torque this on. And so then you have a problem where you constantly have some minor misalignment. And this ring that I got from KBA Custom solved that problem.
So is that a shoulder issue?
It's on the shoulder. There's actually the turn. There's a shoulder, and this screws onto the shoulder, and it squares it. And now when you put the suppressor on, and in fact I'm going to install this just so you can see how it goes. And you put that on there and cinch it down, man.
Yep. Go ahead.
And this goes in here.
I'll hold this, that way you can.
And what happened to now? And I won't be. You can't see this, but what will happen? You can see there's absolutely. It's very straight. There's no. This does not contact the end cap, and the rifle now consistently shoots very good groups. The only thing that I have to be mindful of is if I'm shooting a long string, after about 10 rounds, then the firearm has to, the suppressor has to be retightened, so because it tends to shoot loose, and so and it just takes a little bit of a turn, and this way the groups hold tight. If you're shooting 1 or 2 rounds, that's not a problem, but it's when you're shooting longer strings. When we shoot at longer range, we might try to see, if we can consistently hit it 500 or 600 yards like we've done, and you tend to get absorbed in the shooting. You say, oh, better tighten it up, so that, because you have to be cognizant of the fact that it will loosen. And again, it's most likely because of the piston going out here, setting up secondary vibrations. And what I mean by secondary vibrations, the primary vibration is because of the firing of the rifle, and the barrels has its natural frequencies. But then the piston will also superimpose on that and cause some additional issues. And that's what we think is going on out there. At any rate, I'm very pleased with the performance now. It's doing quite well. And I've shot it quite a bit, and I'm very happy with it.
So I guess a couple things I'm going to put a bookend on this. So there seems to be on the internet, I'm not a SCAR-20 owner, there seems to be some, I guess, debate over whether the SCAR-20 is accurate or the SCARs in general are accurate. And I think there's 2 things people need to probably consider. The first one being, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, the first one being the SCAR tends to favor lighter bullets because of its twist rate. You just can't get around it. And then the second thing is, when you're suppressing the gun, you need to address the shoulder, because the way FN does that, it is not favorable to.
You have to be very aware of the fact that shoulder is not much bigger than the barrel. It's not much of a shoulder there. So there's very little metal to resist any deformation that it can occur by torquing in either a barrel device. So by putting on this shoulder ring that came from KBA Custom, that solves that problem. So you just have to be aware of that. The other issue, again, is the lighter bullets, which tend to be shorter bullets, and you have to do that for getting good group. But I will tell you, and I think you've seen these targets, I've shot 10 shots in 0.6 of an inch group. I think I showed you that one group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've done other groups that are similar to that, so I've been very pleased with it. I've others that shoot in their SCAR-20, they've shot 175 grain bullets at 100 yards, and they've not had any issues. But allegedly, the problem starts to manifest as you get back to longer and longer range.
Yes.
I have not experienced any difficulty with 155 grain bullets shooting as far as 600 yards.
So let me go ahead and interject here, because this is really important, because I see this all over the internet, and we need to set the record straight. You'll run into a guy and he's like, I shoot 175s in my SCARs all the time. You did it, Doc. But most of those people are not shooting out to extended ranges, and at extended ranges you start to see some stabilization issues.
Yeah, the groups tend to start opening because the bullets are slowing down and they're not particularly stable to longer ranges with with a longer bullet.
So, and also, I guess there's one more thing I'm going to add to this, because you actually sold a SCAR-17. You used it as a precision rifle to get the 20. And I don't know how many rounds you put through the 17, and I don't know how many rounds you have through this 20 right now, because again, it is a precision rifle. This is the same scope, as I recall, that you've had on both guns. Have you had any issues with the SCAR breaking your optic?
Absolutely none at all.
I don't even think Doc's aware of that.
I'm not even aware of that. I've had no problems at all, either with the SCAR-17 or the SCAR-20.
There is a story around on the internet that SCARs break optics. I think it probably is true, because because the way it doesn't have a buffer tube in it. But I think it's probably a combination of maybe lesser quality scopes.
To use a word borrowed from another industry, they're not as ruggedized to handle the impact of the SCAR or a firearm that has a piston out there. If you just have a scope that is built to be very durable, like a Night Force, and there are others, I don't think you'll find any issue.
So there were members of, there is a SWAT team I'm not going to mention because we deal with multiple police departments, but there's a SWAT team out there that I'm aware of that there used to be a number of shooters on that team that were running SCAR-17s, and I guess there was at least one SCAR-20. Do you recall over the past, 10 years, however long the SCAR-17's been out, 10, 12 years, have any of those rifles broken any optics that you can recall?
I am not aware of any. Now, that doesn't mean I'm fully plugged into all of that, but I am not aware of any issues.
So we have not been able to verify breaking of optics. So is there anything else you'd want to add to close this out? I'm just trying to put a bookend on the SCAR, and you've got it squared away.
Well, I'm squared away. Just be aware of the fact that you have a very small shoulder out there if you put a muzzle device on there, as I chose to do. And also, with the SCAR, particularly if you're going to shoot longer range, that you must be aware of the bullet length that you're dealing with, which is related to the weight, obviously. And there are a number of websites out there that you can access, which will allow you to calculate if, in fact, you have a stable bullet is stable in flight, or if it's marginal, or if it's really in bad. And so then you can do some bullet selection if you're doing reloading, or even if you're doing some buying some factory ammunition. As long as you can find out the length of that bullet, the approximate velocity, and so on, you can then make that calculation. And the websites will do this all for you. And you can see what is the right choice of bullet for you. I've settled on the 155 grain bullet. It seems to have good characteristics for long-range shooting, and yet it maintains the stability out to the distances, at least that I've shot it. And so I'm very pleased with it. And in fact, I've started my reloading again for 2021 with the 155s, and I had more in order, and we'll finish my reloading so that I don't have to do any reloading when the weather's better, when I want to be out shooting. Okay, so I guess there's going to be two more questions we need to address, and we're going to wrap this up because this is a very long video for us. The first one, I guess the first one is, we do not have any relationship with FN. This is not sponsored. As a matter of fact, you bought all this gear. Is that correct? I bought all this gear. Okay. And then the second question is, because I know the 17 guys are going to want to ask compared to the 20, do you feel like the SCAR-20 was an upgrade over the 17, and why? What do you like about it? What I liked about it, it was a little longer barrel. It gave me a little more velocity. It helped me at longer range because the 308 drops off significantly when you get down to about a 16.5-inch barrel relative to, say, a 20-inch barrel. So I felt that it was the longer range characteristics with a 20 would be better. Truthfully, I would have even preferred a little longer barrel, but I can live with the 20-inch barrel, and that's why I went with this firearm. All right, well, that about wraps it up. If you want to see any more pictures or stories or links of Doc's SCAR-20, go to our website, John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.